In Miami, the sun shines on us all. Sometimes, however, life brings unexpected storms. At Morris Legal, we understand that behind every case there's a story, a dream, a family's future. We pledge to stand by you in your time of need. We're not just attorneys. We're advocates for peace of mind. With expertise and empathy, we stand by you, ensuring justice isn't just a concept, but a reality you can feel and trust. Morris Legal, more than just a law firm. We're a beacon in the storm to light the way to brighter days.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is the professor. Welcome to this broadcast. Welcome to my channel. Please don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like this channel. Today, we're going to have a great show for you. As you know, this channel is dedicated to working in two specific cases, Eminifx and, of course, Novatech. Today, in a matter of minutes, I'm going to have a discussion with the receiver, David Castleman, who's the appointed receiver in the Eminifx. And I just wanted you guys to give you an update of what's going on, because the receiver has been in the case for nearly 2 years now. As you know, Eddie Alexson was convicted. He was sentenced to prison in Philadelphia and Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And the receiver is charged with collecting, marshaling the asset of Eminifx and return that money to the 25,000 people, or between 25 and 60,000 people who have invested in Eminifx. Now, as you would recall, that the receiver had published a website and some dates where people have to confirm their investment. You have to go in on the website, fill out a form, agree on the investment that they have you listed for, or disagree. And there was a date that was given, actually two separate dates. The first date that was given, the first deadline was December 18, 2023. And of course, some people said they thought the Haitian community needed more time. So the receiver extended that time from December 18 to February 23rd, which is February 26th. Of course, that February 26th now is past and gone. The receiver now is in the next process. And this process certainly would entail putting together a series of steps in terms of how people are going to get their money back, their refund back. So today I've invited Mr. Castleman to come back. He was in my show before talking about the process, his job. But today he's going to talk about what the next steps are. So I invite you to join us. I invite you to listen. This is very important. This is about your hard-earned money that you work hard for. You're entitled to get it back. So please share the link with your friends and your family members, especially those people that you know have invested in Eminifx. We will be right back with Attorney Castleman.
In Miami, the sun shines on us all. Sometimes, however, life brings unexpected storms. At Morris Legal, we understand that behind every case there's a story, a dream, a family's future. We pledge to stand by you in your time of need. We're not just attorneys. We're advocates for peace of mind. With expertise and empathy, we stand by you, ensuring justice isn't just a concept, but a reality you can feel and trust. Morris Legal, more than just a law firm. We're a beacon in the storm to light the way to brighter days.
Welcome back. Welcome back to the professor. We are live this Thursday, March 13. And this is a special show today. We're going to bring you update from the receiver and the case of FTC versus Eminifx. As you will recall, the Federal Trade Commission had brought a civil case against Eminifx and, of course, AD Alexon. That particular case is still ongoing. In other words, the criminal case was over. AD Alexon pled guilty, told the judge that he committed fraud. He knew what he was doing was wrong, and that there was never any investment in with the investors' money, and that he did this knowing that he was doing something wrong. So the judge certainly sentenced AD Alexon to 9 years in prison. He's currently now incarcerated in Pennsylvania. So today it's just kind of like really making sure that you guys understand the process. I know so many of you have so many questions, and I encourage you to watch the show, to ask questions. This is your opportunity to ask the receiver question. The receiver will be here momentarily. You will be able to ask questions. So make sure that you have your question written down. And if you're watching the show, do me a favor. If you come late in the process, please read the board, read to see if a question has been asked so that you don't have to ask the same question. Because I know sometimes people ask the same questions, and we don't want to do that. So we want to give you as much of it as an opportunity to ask questions. I know that a lot of you have been asking me questions about taxes, because we did speak about the fact that the Eminifx has to pay federal taxes, because obviously you got to pay the government first before you pay everybody else. So I think that's something that that we have to talk about. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask questions. Now, if you're watching the channel, please share the link with your friend and family members. Please don't forget to subscribe, because what happened, the only time you're going to know if there's something new in the case is you subscribe. And I'm going to continue talking about this case. Next week, we're going to have some people in the Haitian community who are going to be part of the show. We're going to talk about the distribution of funds. I know so many of you have been waiting for a very long time now to get your money back. So I'm hoping that this is going to come very, very soon. So without further ado, I want to bring our receiver, David Castleman. He's our court-appointed receiver. He's with us. David, welcome back to the professor. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. And also, before we get started, I just wanted to acknowledge we're aware of the recent violence that's going on in Haiti. We understand that this is probably affecting a number of Eminifx users, and we just want to extend our heartfelt sympathy to everyone affected.
Thank you so much, David. I think the Asian community is very thankful for that. Yeah, Haiti is going through a trying time right now, and we hope things get settled down very soon. Again, David, I know you're very busy. I thank you so much for taking the time to speak to the community. Like I usually do, some of the things you're going to explain, I'm going to try to tell people in Creole so that they understand better. So you're not new to this. You've been at this for almost 2 years now. I know there was people had some time to confirm their investment, and the time has come and gone. What is the next process now? Where are we? What are we doing?
Yeah, so we had 26,000 roughly users. There we go. We had about 26,000 users submit transactions, and another 10,000 or so who just did not submit, but they still have their transactions. We know those accounts are now sort of presumptively verified. Most people just verified all their transactions. Even those people may get an email from us, depending on if their account is affected by what somebody else has said, and we need to clarify something. But we're now going through the the thousands of disputed and added transactions. We've already started looking through those, and we've seen a number of transactions that people have added that we've been able to verify. And so I think it's really important that this process is working to really make sure that people who have added transactions, that we can then go and verify in the back end, that they'll be able to get those transactions as part of their claim, and then they'll be able to get a distribution that is that's higher because it's based on what they actually invested. And so right now we're going to try to work through all of those disputed and added transactions, all the added members, and we'll be reaching out to claimants. And so we've got on the portal, there's a communication function. It should send an email whenever we send a message to a user. On the portal, it should send an email to that user, and then they should respond. Even if you've verified all, we may still reach out. So I just ask people to keep an eye on their emails and to keep an eye on their portal over the next few months as we work through everything.
Now, let's go back a little bit. Originally, there were talk about 60,000 investors, but that's not correct. There was only 25,000 investors.
Well, it's more about 35,000 users with transactions based on what we've seen in the submissions. There were a number of user accounts that didn't have transactions, meaning that there was no sort of money in or money out related to those accounts. It's possible because many of those accounts were new; they hadn't been funded yet. Other accounts may not have actually ever been funded with outside money, so it might be an account that never received any money, that never put any money into Eminifx, or never got any money out of Eminifx. That type of account won't have any transactions in it, and so there's no real claim based on that. So it is smaller. It's to be expected, and it's consistent with the data that we've seen.
Okay, so but as far as of today, you have over 20,000 people who have confirmed their claims.
Well, we'd say we have 26,000 who have submitted transactions. We have to review those. There may be some that are disputed. Somebody may have added a transaction that didn't exist, and there's really no transactions for an account. That's not common. So I'm expecting by the time we're all said and done, we're seeing people have merged accounts, so we're going to have to run the numbers based on that. But yeah, it's looking like about 35,000 claims from investors.
Now, for the people who didn't confirm their claim, you're still going to get in touch with them. You're still going to talk to them. They're still going to receive some kind of refund, right?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so the deadline is passed. And so if someone hasn't gone to the portal to submit their transactions, they haven't lost their claim. What they've lost, in a sense, and I'm reluctant to use the word loss, but let's just go with that, is their ability to say, oh, no, these transactions are wrong. We're still going to go through all the submissions and do a reconciliation in order to set everyone's claim. So if someone didn't submit they just didn't go onto the portal and didn't submit, and they've got two deposits, one for $5,000 and one for $7,000, and withdrawals, that person will have a $12,000 claim. Okay,
so in other words, because I think what I want people to understand is when you set up this process, you wanted to give people the opportunity to say, I invested $10,000. I see $10,000 initial investment. That's at least the basis for my for getting some money back. Now, what if we have people where you say, listen, I only see you invested 10,000, and the person says, no, it was more like 20. It was never 10. So how do we deal with that? Because the person might disagree. Have they waived that if they didn't confirm it?
We have had thousands of added transactions, and we are going through those. If someone hasn't added a transaction at this point, that process has passed. We had to set a deadline. We had it open for 3 months. We left it open for an additional 2.5 months. But at this point, we're done with adding transactions.
So you're not adding any more transaction now. In other words, the question that I'm asking is, say, for example, I invested 20,000. I give 20,000 to someone, or I invested 20,000. Now, in your paperwork, it shows 10,000. And I know I invested 20. So I come back to you and say, hey, it wasn't 10, it was 20, but I did not confirm it with you. The question is, do I waive my right to that to say it was 20 because I failed to confirm it?
Under the procedures, yes. That's
Okay.
why we've been. But I'm not. I want to emphasize that we have been received, I would say at least hundreds, if not thousands, of transactions where people have added, and we've been able to verify those. Some of those we've looked at already. So and we're going to go through all of everything everyone sent us. But in our initial review, I've seen, for example, a number of transactions that were done on May 11th, which was the last day that Eminifx was up and running. Though those transactions went into coin payments on May 11th, and I've already seen just in the not the handful, but in the hundreds that we've already started to review, we've seen some people who've added on May 11th, but because so much of Eminifx was done manually, that transaction never got into the database that was attributed to a user. So there's just a coin payments ID associated with it. And I personally looked at one transaction, and this is just an example, but I think it was tens of thousands of dollars where the user had the ID and we're able to say, okay, you know what? We see the ID. They provided it. We know that they deposited it. It was never attributed to them because it was sort of right at the end of Eminifx, and there was no time to have that. Quite frankly, because the arrest was early in the morning on the 12th, that's probably when it would have been attributed. That wasn't therefore done. And so we were able to do that attribution. That investor will get a claim based on that amount.
Okay. So let's talk to the people a little bit about what is the next step now, because people have been waiting. They want to know how much longer do we have to wait before we see any kind of money?
I mean, look, that's a great question. What I've been getting since May of 2020.
When this thing started, yeah.
We are working we need to reconcile the claims. We can't make payments and just do distribution until we have reconciled exactly what people put in and what they got out. And based on our conversation for a moment ago, that's something that just takes quite a bit of work to reconcile and to make sure that we're accurate, because I don't want to miss people putting in money and having their contributions in, because the records on the Eminifx side were not 100% perfect. And so we need to get that done. Once we have that done and approved by the court, we'll submit a distribution plan. We're already working on initial outlines of that distribution plan. We'll submit a distribution plan to the court, and investors, Eminifx users, will have an opportunity to weigh in. We'll set up a process to do that. We'll streamline that for everyone. And once that's done, we will, and approved by the court, I'm going to want to do a distribution as soon as we can.
Okay. So the next thing is to be able to put that distribution plan together and then get Judge Caproni to approve the distribution. Now, I know you may not know anything in court. You never know, but approximately what kind of time frame are we talking about? I'm not asking you to give me exact date. Kind of give me a round type of what you think. Nobody's going to hold you to it.
Well, you say no one's going to hold me to it, but I'm not so sure that's true. I want to be careful with offering dates that are not realistic. But I think we're looking at sometime, maybe the end of this year, beginning of next year, for an initial distribution. But I want to emphasize that we will likely do distributions in waves. There'll probably be a first distribution and maybe a second, maybe even a third distribution, depending on how the cash flows of the estate work and depending on our resolution of the tax issues that we have to resolve.
Yeah, but that's something also we're going to talk about later, because I know a lot of people are very concerned about what's going on with the tax issue. So this is something we're gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about it later on in the second segment of it. So we're thinking that probably toward the end of the year, beginning of next year, people might be able to start seeing some checks going out to them. But that would entail that the court approves it, that nobody else object to it, because if somebody comes and object, that certainly would create, it would delay things. Let's hope nobody does that. So
I expect to have an ability to respond, similar in the way we did for the digital protocol. I'll expect a way for people to respond, and no one will be. That said, I want to be careful to emphasize that we won't penalize anyone for having a response review. It's different than our own. That's perfectly allowed.
Right. I mean, people have the right to do that if they so choose to do that. Now, let's talk about the wave. At one point, I remember you mentioned that you may start to give a certain group of people payment in terms you're going to do it in wave. You're going to do the first wave, a second wave, a third wave. How do you decide who gets payment first, who gets payment second?
It's all eligible. It's that cash goes out in waves, not people.
Okay.
So everyone who's eligible for distribution under the plan, based on the amount that we're distributing. So let's say we've got, I'm going to use small numbers just because I don't want to say unrealistic numbers, just for, as an example. Let's say I have $100. It's going to be much, much more than that, but let's just use it for example. $100 to distribute. If we distribute $50 and then $30 and then $20, that still goes to everyone. It just means that the cash will go in waves because we have to reserve for taxes. We may have to reserve for other issues, and we may have money coming in from other unexpected sources. And that's typically how this works in receiverships. We try to distribute what we can when we can. And what I don't want to do is, because we can't distribute the whole thing, just wait and wait and wait. If we can get some money out, but we have to hold back other money to say, well, because we're resolving the tax situation, and that's the most common reason in receiverships, I still want to get money out to people as quickly as I can, even if it's in pieces.
Okay, thank you. Let me just do a little bit in Creole. Mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir, c'est professeur. Aujourd'hui, à moi gagné et David Castleman qui se côte apprenti de receiver pour chercher l'argent pour émettre monde qui t'est investi dans Eminifx. Jeudi, monsieur vini pour nous parler de qui le prochain step que nous avons fait, parce que nous connaissons la date 26 février, date la vini li passé. Kounia la n'a parlé pour nous qui l'est que monsieur Karimet comme là. Eh bien, monsieur expliqué que lui dit que bon process pour aller dans le tribunal. Process ça, c'est pour le mettre et documents ensemble pour l'expliquer juge qui Jean voulait faire process distribution. Kounia juge pas approuvé. Les juges fin approuvé kounia là, monsieur dit que peut-être dans fin année, dans commencement l'autre année, peut-être il a commencé voyer chèque by moun, il a commencé payer une série de moun. Mais il dit qu'il travaille très rapidement pour le payer tout le monde, et un seul bagage il demande de patience, parce que me connais grand pile dans nous qui demande de l'argent, qui besoin l'argent, parce que l'argent nous travaille pour lui, me connais besoin, mais monsieur a travaillé diligent, parce que comme toujours dit nous, pas de bagage dans l'état petit, tout bagage dans l'état ici, go tout bagage dans l'état prend temps. Well, thank you for joining the professor. I am here with David Castleman, the receiver on the Eminifx case, who is talking to us about the process of returning the fund to the people. David, we're going to take a quick 1 minute break, and we will be right back. When we come back, let's talk a little bit about the tax issue, because that has been a big issue since the last time you mentioned it. So we will be right back. Just stay tuned 1 minute.
In Miami, the sun shines on us all. Sometimes, however, life brings unexpected storms. At Morris Legal, we understand that behind every case there's a story, a dream, a family's future. We pledge to stand by you in your time of need. We're not just attorneys. We're advocates for peace of mind. With expertise and empathy, we stand by you, ensuring justice isn't just a concept, but a reality you can feel and trust. Morris Legal, more than just a law firm. We're a beacon in the storm to light the way to brighter days.
Welcome back to the professor. Today we are talking to David Castleman, the attorney court appointed receiver, in the matter of FTC versus Eminifx. Thank you so much for watching. David, let's, at one point when we did our first interview, you talk about taxes. And I cannot tell you how many times people call me and ask me, Professor, why am I paying taxes when this was a fraud, it was a crime, the government, why is the government taking money? So can you explain to people why taxes is an issue?
Sure. And let me clarify. What I'm talking about are the taxes of Eminifx Inc., the company. So I have an obligation under the receivership order to file a tax return for Eminifx Inc. and to pay any taxes that are owed. We're in the process right now, and I want to be cognizant that we're in the process right now of trying to minimize that burden as much as possible.
Now, is it federal tax? Because I have people now asking question. I have a lady, Donette Villar, an investor. She said, if the investment didn't make any money, why do we have to pay taxes?
It's so I want to be clear. I'm not talking about what any investor, user, members tax consequences are individually. That's up to them. We can't give advice on that.
Right.
I have an obligation to just try to assess the taxes for the company.
You mean the taxes is not personal to the investors? In other words, that's something they can take care of themselves.
Exactly.
When we talk about taxes, you're talking about taxes in the corporation, like the corporation itself has to pay taxes. I think that my viewers are having problem understanding why is the corporation paying federal taxes when we say the corporation itself was illegal, when we say that A.D. Alexson committed a crime. Those are the questions that they have.
I'm aware of all of this. I am advocating with the Internal Revenue Service for the lowest possible tax burden.
Okay.
I can't make rules for the IRS, though. I can't decide what the IRS is going to assess or not assess. What I can do is I have tax advisors who are helping to try to make that as small as possible. But I can't say if that's going to be what number that will be, and I don't want to open the door to airing this in public. I know it's frustrating, but this is something that I and the tax advisors for Eminifx receivership estate need to do, quite frankly, behind the scenes, and we are doing. And we'll do what we can.
I think people don't understand, and let's look at the theory. Organizations are people too.
An organization under U.S. law, incorporated, and a corporation under U.S. law is a separate legal person. That's correct.
Exactly, and that they have tax obligation.
Correct.
As a corporation.
Yes.
And I understand the tax obligation. And I'm looking at my board. I've got a lot of people watching, and they're asking a lot of questions. And the question is, well, wait a second. The company didn't make any money. In other words, they're saying there was no profit. So why are they paying taxes? I mean, you may not know the answer, but all I can tell people is, listen, if you've got a business, money come in, you're going to have to pay some kind of taxes, but nobody knows how much it is. Is that a fair way of framing the issue so people understand?
I'm trying to think of how to answer that. The tax obligations there is law out there on how to tax the profits, even when something is a scheme.
Right.
And obviously, there's a guilty plea in this case. There are arguments for why the corporation should have a much lower tax burden, or even no tax burden, depending on how one views the money coming in and out. And that includes the Bitcoin, the basis of the Bitcoin coming in, the turning over to the receiver. But these are somewhat novel theories. This is not a usual situation that we deal with, that the Internal Revenue Service has to deal with. This is an unusual situation given the circumstances here. And so that's why I've hired and I'm working with Deloitte Tax, which is one of the top tax firms in the country, at very reduced rates as a public service to the Eminifx investors. And we're working on the problem. It is the federal priority statute requires us to pay, and the order reflecting that requires us to pay taxes. It is not something that's optional, and so we're going to work to do what we can on it. But I don't want to prejudge an answer, and we're going to have some space to negotiate this with the service behind the scenes if we need to, and to do what we can. And at the appropriate point, I'll report to the court on where we stand.
Okay, now whatever the tax burden is, you don't know yet, obviously, how much taxes we're going to pay, but that is going to come from out of the money you got from Eddie Alexan, the Bitcoin that you liquidated to have that, what is it, $156 million total?
I think we're at 154 is the total that we're holding. That doesn't include $9 million in separately segregated Alexander assets.
Okay.
I mean, either way, we're talking 145 in the general, 9 in the separate. These are rough numbers. The most accurate numbers are reported in our status reports down to the penny. But yes, that any taxes owed will come from that body. But there, again, any taxes owed. I'm not saying there will be taxes.
There may not be taxes.
If there are, that's where they'll come from.
Okay. Now, this is only what? This is only federal tax, or is it also state tax?
We're looking at federal.
Federal, okay, federal. So there's no state.
We'll have to, we'll have to deal with the state tax, separate issue. But we're focused on federal right now.
Okay, so federal tax. All right. So pour un pile moun kap tande yo kounya la, et un pile la question de poser c'est pour qui raison Eminifx a payé taxe. Nous tendez que Receiver a dit que il y a une loi aux États-Unis qui dit une corporation c'est quand on moun lié. Les corporations qui sont rentrées là-dedans, eh bien, il y a une obligation taxe. Monsieur dit que la travaille avec une compagnie de Lawyer Touche pour lui ouais si on pas payer taxe du tout. Alors il pas dit que nous pas payer, il pas dit que n'a payé. Il dit que si vous pour payer taxe, il t'a aimé qu'il ne pas payer en pile son petit crasse nous payer. Mais si vous pour payer taxe tout, si pas pour payer, c'est plus bon pour nous parce qu'il y a plus l'argent pour tout le monde joindre un petit si peu dans ça que vous avez investi. Alors pour Haïtien captain de là qui t'a posé un pile question sur question taxe là, eh bien nous gagnons réponse là, gouvernement m'a assuré que li touché avant tout le monde. Mais monsieur dit la fait pile effort pour nous pas payer taxe. Well, David, I'm sorry, I had to explain the tax issue in Creole so that people understand completely what the issue is. Now, I have another question from James Fresnel. James, thank you so much for your question. James asks, will Eminifx investors receive a tax statement from the receiver? In other words, when you send them money, would you send them like a statement, say, hey, you got to pay taxes on this?
We're not going to file 1099s.
Okay. So, James,
on the website, but I'll confirm that here.
James, your question is that the receiver will not send a tax statement to you or to any of the investors when you receive a check. That's very important because I wanted people to understand this. I wanted it to be very clear. Now, here's the question that people are asking, and I know you may not know the answer to this. And they're asking, and this is a public service, I have to ask. I promised them I would ask the question that they asked.
Okay.
They want to know, in terms of a percentage, how much they should be expecting.
Yeah,
what's the theory? What system are you using? I mean, they want to have some sort of an idea. If somebody invested, let's say $100, what is it that, how much money can they get back? Can they get 40% back? Can they get 20% back? How does that work?
Again, will depend on the tax situation. But the tax situation, look, even in the worst case scenario, the taxes will not consume the entire estate. So there will be a substantial distribution. I think it will be substantial. I don't want to put, the second I put a percentage on it, it creates expectations. It'll depend on what people got out. So, and how withdrawals will be calculated in terms of distribution, that's going to be the issue that we'll raise in the distribution plan. People have a chance to weigh in on. We'll explain how we're going to do it, what our proposal is, so folks can understand how it's going to work. But I expect it to be substantial and quite frankly, higher than in many cases with Ponzi-like attributes.
No, I have seen other cases. For example, in the Madoff case, for example, a lot of people got, between 40 to 50% of what they put in because there was so much expenses. Now, normally in a case like this, and I'm not saying that's what you're saying, so is it unreasonable for people to kind of expect in the neighborhood of maybe 75%? And you don't have to answer that. I'm just saying, is it reasonable? It's not like you're making the promise. I don't want to put words into your mouth.
That's a high number in these types of cases.
Yeah. Yeah, because I have been telling people that in my experience, usually it's between, if you get 33 to 47%, you're in good shape. I mean, that's based on what I've seen in other similar Ponzi scheme, and I can use a number of cases where the government comes in and they take over, and then they appoint a receiver, and they have to marshal the asset, they have to spend money. So it takes money to get the money back. So usually it's that nobody gets 100%.
Yeah, and I should be clear. We're positive right now, the estate. Now that's not ever guaranteed, but because of the recoveries that we had from the real estate litigation that was all pre-suit, so all signed with settlements plus, which was a couple $1 million, more than a couple $1 million, plus some other recoveries that are smaller than the interest. We have not had to spend any of the turned over bank accounts or the liquidation proceeds from the assets. So the recoveries and the interest have so far exceeded the total expenses over the life of the receivership. Where the losses have come into play is that we have people put in money, there's withdrawals, but there's also substantial investment losses. I mean, by the time Bitcoin being one,
Well, you know what? That's the thing I wanted to talk about.
and investment losses, yeah.
Let's talk about, so people understand that some of the money they invested actually were lost. Now, at the time you took over as the receiver, it was understood, at least by me and some other people, that there were a total of $200 million worth of Bitcoin and an account in Estonia.
No,
now,
not that high.
How much was it?
At the time of the freeze, it was 107 million.
107 million of Bitcoin in Estonia.
Yes.
Now, when you liquidated that account, how much money did you get from that?
About 90 million.
So you lost about 17 million.
Well, we didn't lose anything. So
no, I mean I'm not saying you.
Right.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying that the price of Bitcoin went down.
Well, so what happened is the price of Bitcoin was was about 107 million at the time of the freeze, but we didn't have access to it. It took us about 6 months to do a deal with which we did, and we put it on the court docket, and people can go find it on our website. But to do a deal with the exchange, the Estonian exchange, and then it moved to Lithuania in the interim, so whatever, the Baltic exchange.
Right.
When we got the Bitcoin back, when the Bitcoin came into the receivership, it was worth about 60 million.
Oof. That's a huge.
We sold it, and then we sold it slowly, and we got about 90 million. So it was up about 30 from when we kind of took it to when we sold it on average.
So that was a good job, though. Congratulations. From 60 to 90 million, you've made $30 million for the investors. Now, I have a question from France Victorin. He's one of the investors of Eminifx. He says, the disputed account, how long it would take for you to verify them?
That's a good question. I don't have an exact answer. We're going to try to do it in the next few months. We're going to work on other stuff in the interim as well, but it'll probably take us a couple months to go. I mean, it's thousands of transactions and accounts where it will take us a couple months to go through everything.
Okay, so are you going to do the disputed account before you file the motion in court to get the process approved?
The distribution plan, you mean?
Right.
Yes. We have to. We have to get the set of the claims, and then we can do distribution plan. But we're not behind the scenes. We can work in parallel. I've already started outlining a distribution plan. We'll be able to. So those things will work in parallel, and so we don't just do one thing at once. We do multiple things at the same time.
Okay. Now I have another question from another viewer, Saint-Ville. She asked, when for the people who give money to third party to invest for them, how do they get anything at all? Do they get anything, or is it a lost cause? Should they pursue anything?
We're generally not, and it just we're not a court. Like, I'm a court-appointed receiver, but we're in a court for Eminifx users to litigate claims against each other. So we have the add user function where some users have said, no, this transaction is in my name was actually this other person's name, and we have a process where we'll be able to move transactions from one user to another, where essentially the users agree. Where the users disagree, we're generally going to go with what's in Eminifx's records and not try to resolve disputes among users. But I encourage people, I mean, people gave to their friends, to their family, and I encourage people to work with their friends and their family. So we're looking at who gave money to Eminifx, but if that money came from other people informally, then we're looking to the users to really work with their friends and family to get the money from in a fair way. But that's really up to them. It's not something that we're going to be in charge of.
Very, very good. We are sitting with the court-appointed receiver in the matter of FTC versus Eminifx, Mr. David Castleman. We'll take a short break and we will be right back.
In Miami, the sun shines on us all. Sometimes, however, life brings unexpected storms. At Morris Legal, we understand that behind every case there's a story, a dream, a family's future. We pledge to stand by you in your time of need. We're not just attorneys. We're advocates for peace of mind. With expertise and empathy, we stand by you, ensuring justice isn't just a concept, but a reality you can feel and trust. Morris Legal, more than just a law firm. We're a beacon in the storm to light the way to brighter days.
Welcome, welcome, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We are broadcasting live. We have the receiver with us, David Castleman, and the Eminifx case. We're talking about the next step. I know a lot of you wanted to know when you're getting your money, and I'm going to say this in Creole very quickly. Receiver a parlé de qui den ka jwenn kobyo, monsieur dit qu'il gan pile travail pour le faire, et la PC ouais, s'il te ka commencer distribution dans commencement fin année ou bien commencement l'autre année. Mais la travail très dur, il faut la dans côte pour lui mettre papier pour juger qui a approuvé. Et puis il y a moun tout qui te dit qu'il n'est pas d'accord avec une série de ça qui était ouais en live. Et bien monsieur dit que moun sa yo, il pral prendre soin yo right away, il pral prendre soin ça dans et quelques jours qui venir là. Well, Mr. Castleman, thank you so much again for being here with us. We were just talking about third-party investors. And of course, this is not something you can do. Now, I know that there were companies that invested in Eminifx. And what they've done, people have gone out in the community and collected money from third parties. And I know a specific company, which I can't reveal for privacy purposes, that have collected $2 million, for example. And they invested that. And their name is on your list. Now, do you return part of that money to the company, or do people have to go to court and try to get some of that money back? How does that work?
Typically and I've seen this in other receiverships as well, it's the receivership will distribute money to the claimants. Mm-hmm. Company, and if a company has a claim because it invested money and that company has other owners, then the company will receive a distribution, and the other owners or contributors may or may not have a stake in that distribution depending on their relationship with that company. And that's up to me to decide what the claimant's relationship with its other folks are. But I do encourage all claimants who may have taken money from others to, when they get a distribution, to work with the people they took the money from to ensure the distribution is sent where it should be sent. But one of the things we're very clear about in our procedures is that we were just looking at the investors in Eminifx, and we were not prejudicing. We weren't affecting other claimants' rights as against each other or other people's rights as against each other. So In your example, though, the investors and the company, that's a private matter between them, and it's not really something that I, in my capacity as court-appointed receiver, can make a decision on.
Okay. So in other words, mesdames et messieurs, nous tendez ça receiver à dire, si nous te bay moun l'argent pour investir pour nous, nous te bay par exemple pasteur nous, amis nous, frères nous, maman nous pour investir pour nous. Dans la mesure que comme ça part sous nous, receiver a dit que la voie comme là retourner by moun qui non sous liste là. Si ou même ou te bay moun l'argent, ou te bay Pierre l'argent, ou te bay Jean l'argent, ou te bay Jacob l'argent, eh bien c'est ou même qui pour aller côté Jacob pour dire Jacob mon cher me débocob me kon receiver pour le payer remettre moi comme moi, ou bien pour aller dans le tribunal pour commencer un cas contre moun sa. Alors receiver a pas dans position lui-même pour le représenter ni pour le faire ça. So I had to explain to them what you said in English, that this is not your position to challenge third parties. You will return the fund to whoever's name is on the list, whoever invested the money. Now, these people, they would have to go to the third parties to make that claim themselves.
It's a good summary.
Okay, perfect. I know I try to do my best, exactly what you said. Nadia, I think
languages too. I appreciate both languages.
I think it's important for people to understand exactly what's being said. One of our viewers, Nadia, asked, Professor, would you please ask the receiver, are we receiving part of the amount that was invested or the amount that was an holdup? I don't know if they're talking about the amount that, because I understand that there was no money invested. So I guess that they say the question is, are they receiving the initial or part of the initial investment, or if there was any extra, are they receiving the extra too?
There wasn't any extra. So they're receiving the amount that was invested. As I've noted, the ROI and the bonuses that were put on the accounts on the display weren't based in any actual investing or trading activity. In fact, all the investing and trading activity that occurred resulted in losses. And this is, we have a detailed report of this on the website, eminifxreceivership.com. There's a financial condition report on the homepage, and all investors can look and see actually week by week kind of what was happening under the scenes, behind the scenes in reality. What that means is, because unfortunately, not only does it mean that because there were all these losses instead of gains, what that means is that Eminifx members will have claims that will be based on the amount that they invested, and it won't be 100% because there were all these losses.
And I think that's where people are getting confused, because people give their money and they were told that the money was going to be invested. That never happened. There was no investment. There was no return. There was no ROI. There was no extra money coming.
Well, there was some investment, but the investment that was occurring was losing money during the life of the fund.
Now, when you said there was investment, let's be very specific here. We say, because at one point there was investment in some future trading or real estate investment. There was $9 million that was lost.
Yeah, the real estate investment was generally deposits that were placed. We had a lot of litigation on that, and we're able to recover actually a couple $1 million, more than $2 million. The futures and stock trading, that lost only about $9 million was put into that investment activity, but it lost about over $7 million. So unfortunately, those investments those
right, at least 90% of the money.
And the biggest losses were in Bitcoin, because people were contributing and withdrawing in the Bitcoin account and the Estonian Bitcoin account, and the price of Bitcoin was going down during the operation in Eminifx. The value of the assets in the Eminifx ecosystem kept going down, generally kept going down. I think there was a week or two where they did bounce back a little bit, but never positive. It was always negative. And our financial condition report kind of sets out all these numbers in detail. But by the time of the receivership began, the losses and the costs. I mean, there was $6 million in costs, salaries and office space and equipment and stuff. Was over $50 million in losses.
$50 million in losses. Now, I have another question. There is a question from Fred Phineas, one of our viewers and investors. He says, can you please confirm for us, was the total amount that investor put in 60 million or more than 60 million?
The total amount put in was about 262 million. The total withdrawals were about 34 million. So it was a net of about 228 investor contributions.
So when you say withdrawal, you're talking about money that investors withdraw from their account.
Yeah, absolutely. As many investors know, they were able to withdraw. Usually, they would submit a request. It would come via the coin payment system almost exclusively. But I mean, there were over 20,000 withdrawal transactions.
Okay. Now, another question: what happened to people who withdraw more than they invested? Do they get any money back?
I would not expect that would be the case.
Okay. So in other words, if somebody invested $200 and they withdrew $900, they're not getting any money back. Obviously, makes sense.
No.
They're getting more than they put in. Now, is the receiver going after these people to return some of that money?
We are going to evaluate that question. One reason I want to do this, we need to finish this claim transaction reconciliation process is to assess the scope of that issue and to determine what the best course of action is in light of conserving resources and what makes the most sense, both in terms of resource conservation and in terms of fairness. So I don't have an answer for that yet. What I will say is in every other case I've worked on, that's always been the subject of additional court practice that'll go in parallel to everything else, but we'll need to take a look and see what makes the most sense.
Right. So you would have to analyze and see how many people receive more than they put in, how much of that money is more. In other words, if there is $20 million out there of extra money, that may be a reason to go after these people. But if we're talking about a few $100,000 more, then lawyers' fee would eat that up. So it wouldn't make any sense to do that, right?
And the distribution, right? And so, if somebody, look, I mean, I'll be very realistic here, right? If somebody put out $50, let's take a low number, more than they got in, well, no one's going to file a lawsuit for $50.
No, of course not.
Exactly.
The cost of filing the claim is $400. So
there you go. Right.
That's
right. So we're going to take all of the factors into account, and I will say this now. I'm comfortable saying this now that I'm going to take into account the fact that I would say the default position. I'm not saying it's true for every single investor, but I expect that for 35,000, that the vast majority of investors were unaware that this was going to be shut down as and accused of being a fraud, and that Mr. Alexander was going to be serving time in federal prison for this. And so if people don't know what's going on, then that's a factor I will take into account as well.
Okay. In other words, if they weren't part of the scheme, so to speak, if they were just what we call in the law a bona fide investor,
yes,
with guilty mind. That's what we lawyer call it, bona fide investor of guilty mind.
Without guilty mind, I think.
Without guilty mind. That's correct. Without guilty mind. We have another question from Maurice. Maurice says, Mr. Receiver, do you think we would not have any loss on the BTC investment if you did not sell them too early? In other words, he's saying when you sold them too early. The price of BTC now is $70,000. Why couldn't you wait?
So, look, it's a great question, and one I'm happy to answer head on. When we took the Bitcoin and we held it, we had to make a decision as to whether or not it was appropriate to hold assets in Bitcoin. And that's especially true given the fact that Eminifx wasn't a Bitcoin collection, right? Eminifx, everyone's accounts were in dollars. All the ROI that was applied was in dollars, and it was all unconnected from Bitcoin. So people were investing in Eminifx it wasn't a fund for Bitcoin. What Eminifx was a club that was offering 5-10% every single week, regardless of whatever the price of Bitcoin was doing. And so looking at the fact that Bitcoin was commingled, we had to determine whether it was appropriate to be taking risks with customer funds. And that's why we did the digital protocol. And that's why the court said that the appropriate investment for a receivership was high yield savings account, because that is a safe investment. And look, I mean, with anyone, right? Anyone with a time machine, and knowing what prices are going to go, can always go back and say, well, you could buy Apple stock on this date and sell it at this date, or you could buy General Electric on this date and sell it at this date. So you can't really go back in time to look, I think, to see what one should have done. You've got to look at what the risk is at the time and what's appropriate at the time.
Well, I think also, David, that the same people who are saying, why did you sell the stock so early, giving the price of BTC now, would have been the same people who would blame you if the price of BTC went down. They were like, why don't you sell it when it was 60, now it's 20? So you can't win either way. So that's a very good answer. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the professor. We are sitting here live with the receiver, David Castleman, talking about the next step. We said we were going to be for an hour. We have 10 minutes left. And let's try to kind of wrap up a little bit, give people a little bit more understanding. I know we've been talking about the process. And for people who are joining us, if you just join us, we talk about the distribution process, which is a process that the receiver had to put in place, and it has to be approved by court. And then, of course, Mr. Receiver, when you start writing this check, is it going to be a check from Eminifx, from your office? How would that work?
So payments work, yeah. It'll come from it'll come from a bank, but we have a claims distribution called Stretto. Most people have dealt with Stretto. They've seen Stretto on the email addresses. I think our email address is eminifx@stretto.com. And that will be the company that will handle the payments. I'm going to look into checks for sure as the default for this, but we're going to look into other payment possibilities as well. I want to evaluate those to make sure everything is safe. But if there are ways to do electronic payments that are cheaper and safer, depending on where folks are, then I would like to do that. But we need to make sure they're safe and that everything works. So that'll be a separate process. I'll work with Stretto on that. But they're an experienced claims administrator. They do hundreds of cases with thousands of creditors and distributions, and so we'll have a process for that set up.
Okay. So you have people.
Wait, if I can add, and we're going to use the portal for that. So everyone, just because they've done the transactions, I want to make sure everyone understands the portal we're going to keep using the portal as much as we can to communicate with investors and to help with the distribution as well when it comes time for that.
Okay. We're going to take two last questions. There is a question that somebody's been asking. I know the answer. I typed the answer, but they insist that I ask you this question. I know the answer to it. So please
answer any question
for a minute. Pierre Aclouche asks, Mr. Professor, would you please ask the receiver this question for me? Please, you promised me you would ask the receiver. Why did the receiver have to go arrest Mr. Eddie Alexander?
Okay. I did not arrest Eddie Alexander. Eddie Alexander was arrested by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and charged by the Department of Justice in a separate criminal action. I was put in by the court in the civil action brought by the CFTC to collect, to conserve, and then eventually to distribute the assets of Eminifx to Eminifx investors and members.
Perfect. The very last question we'll take, Vladimir asks, what about the people who live outside the United States? There were investors who was not from this country. Would they receive the same treatment, the same money? How would that work if they don't live here?
People don't have a claim depending on whether they're in the United States. Okay. So the portal, people can log on to the internet from all over the world. Our website is accessible from, I assume, everywhere in the world. I don't know every other country's IT policy, but Our website doesn't have blockers, and yeah, so other folks from other countries will be able to have claims. We see a number of claims in our registration table from people in Haiti, where again, if people joining late, I again want to emphasize again that we are really sympathetic to the situation there and are mindful of that situation. We'll keep the situation in mind as we formulate our distribution procedures.
Well, let me say this in Creole. Take me a minute to do. Premièrement, faut m'expliquer nous que Receiver a pas arrêté Eddie Alexandre. Receiver a pas qu'on rien à faire arrêter Eddie Alexandre. C'est FBI qui a arrêté Eddie Alexandre pour cas criminel là. FTC, Federal Trade Commission, mettons qu'est-ce contre Eddie et Eminifx. Yo a pointé Receiver pour le ramasser quoi. Monsieur pas qu'on Eddie, il pas grand ya Eddie. Il n'y a pas jamais eu un problème avec Eddie. Alors, on a parlé qui moun arrêté Eddie, c'est FBI qui a arrêté Eddie, c'est pas Receiver. I had to explain what you said, that you have nothing to do with his arrest. You didn't even know Eddie Alexandre existed until they appointed you Receiver. So how could you arrest Eddie? We have nothing to do with it. So I wanted to make this clear for people asking this question. Now, I know people start asking the same question over again. Guys,
Okay.
if you are watching this, you just come up here. The question about the percentage, we asked that question before. You can rewatch the broadcast and you get that question. But the receiver said he can't give you, a specific answer, but it would be something, substantial. Let's say that. Because people are asking the same question.
Yep.
What's the percentage? How come you know who the investors are? Why aren't you giving the money to them now?
Well, we don't, right? I mean, this is why we're doing the process, is that we have some records, and that gives us an indication of who we think the investors are. But that's why we've gone through this entire process, is that the records of who put what in were not there. And so we've had to reconstruct what we could. And now we're going to folks to make sure that folks are included in that process. That's going to be, I want people to, the investors to be included in that process, which is what we spent the last few months doing. It sounds simple, but it's not. It is a very complex, labor and time intensive problem that we are working hard to get right. And we will come up with a list, and we will use that list for distribution.
Mes amis, bon m'expliquer nous. Bagay ou pas facile. Je connais que grand pile moun k'ap tande là qui t'a remen kob lan jodi a, qui t'a remen demain, mais gon process légal nous supposé passer là-dedans. Process a compliqué en pile. C'est mon bagay que m'ka fait kounia parce que faut me faire le droit pour m'assurer que tout le monde joine outil bagay, que pas gen qui joine plus que moun, pas gen qui joine un bagay et plus avantage. Si m'pa fait le genre supposé faire là, nous-mêmes nous pas content parce que n'a dit que il pas fait bien. Alors, prends patience, bon petit patience pour me faire travail là, j'en supposé fait là. I just had to explain in Creole what you just said.
Absolutely, please.
What you just said so they understand. Well, we are coming. We've got 5 minutes left. I'll give you the time to say anything you want to the Haitian community. They are listening and they are anxious. People want their money, and I can see on the board that how they're asking questions. So please go ahead.
No, again, as I started off the program, we understand that the situation is difficult right now in the country, and I'm sure a lot of people have relatives and friends who are affected, and so we understand this is a very difficult and stressful time for a lot of people. And I understand the questions on the percentage and the timing, and those are the questions that I think are very natural to have. My goal remains to do a distribution as soon as we can. We have to get the claims in place. We have to know what people put in, got out, how those claims verified, approved by the court. We have to have the distribution plan approved by the court, and that's what we're working very hard to do. Once we have that, I want to get money out as fast as I can. And we will, there may be, like I say, there may be 2 distributions or 3, but if we do distributions, it's going to be to everyone who has a claim at the same time, and there's just money that might go out in waves. And I just want to start preparing people for that the first check that people get might not be the only check people get. And so I just want to start laying the groundwork for that concept now. But we're going to keep working as hard as we can to get money back to folks. That is our primary mission. That's what I've been saying from the day, and that's what the court has said our mission is.
Mes amis, j'aime comme t'expliquer avant, on a travaillé très dur pour nous essayer de remettre mon yo le plus tôt possible. Mais comme moi te dis déjà un process pour nous passer. et tribunal là et bon appointé moi bon droit pour me faire ça. M'pas ka faire un bagage différent de ça que vous te demandé me faire. Je connais grand pile dans nous qui besoin comme là, je connais grand pile dans nous capitaine comme là et m'a assurer nous que m'a travail aussi dur, aussi vite pour nous ka joindre comme là. Et là nous joindre comme là peut-être là nous recevoir premier chèque là, nous ka recevoir un deuxième chèque tout, c'est peut-être pas un seul chèque qu'on ka recevoir. Mais prends patience, comme là venir, mais faut faire ça droite, Jean la loi mandel. I just had to explain what you said in Creole. So,
and if I could say one more thing in English, if you could actually say it in Creole, just to everyone, please watch your emails. And if you get an email from the receivership, please look at your portal and please respond to any communication that we send you as fast as you can.
OK. Tendez bien ça, receiver a dit. Il dit que il peut envoyer email by tout le monde. Lorsque un email là, pas négliger, répondre rapide, suivre direction sa email là diant pour lui capable même joindre information pour capable avancer sous dossier pour nous assurer que nous tous joindre comme nous supposés joindre. Very good. Mr. Castleman, I thank you so much for being here. This channel is dedicated to helping the Eminifx investors get their money back. And we're going to continue talking about that until everyone gets a check from you. I know they will not be satisfied, but at least they will not have lost everything that they invested. This platform is open. Please feel free to come back whenever you have something to share with the community. I'd like to believe that the next time we talk is for people to be happy that they are receiving money from you.
I'm happy to. I understand this is difficult. I understand people are going through. I'm not asking anyone to be happy in this situation. We would never ask that of anybody, but we will keep working and we'll keep communicating with the community. And thank you for your help in communicating the facts to the Eminifx community.
Well, I thank you so much, Mr. Castleman. Thank you so very much. People, nous mettre temps, m'apprêter avec nos petits temps pour me répondre une question while I allow Mr. Castleman to exit the stage. Mr. Castleman, thank you so much. Hope to see you. I know you're working hard. The community, thank you for the hard work. Now, let's see if we can get money to people before the end of the year, hopefully. Thank you, sir. Well, mesdames et messieurs, nous tendez, ça receiver a dit, nous pourrons commencer travail et nous pourrons commencer à parler plus sur ça qui gagne là et qui c'est ça qui gagne. Sur ça qui gagne sur ça qui gagne et pour nous connaître exactement qui l'a besoin de ça receiver a dit que il a fait un pile effort pour les jeunes cobla pour nous voir cobla ba nous même qu'on est grand pile dans nous qui vraiment est anxieux naturellement nous travaillons dur pour cobla me connaît grand pile dans nous travaille 2-3 jobs surtout pour et nurse moi yo comprendre chauffeur taxi yo et frère yo me connaît travaille dur pour l'argent il y a monde qui prend cob 401k yo il y a monde qui prend caillou cal négocier qui prend loan sous caillou pour te investir parce que tu pensé que tu pas le fond l'argent. Eh bien, travail moi c'est pour aider nous comprendre ça qu'a fait là, c'est pour aider nous jusqu'à ce que nous joignent Coblan. Eh bien, receiver c'est un monde pour nous continuer par la avec parce que c'est dans même l'argent c'est lui-même qui connaît qu'il est là bas Coblan. Eh bien, l'important pour nous parler avec et moi-même m'a continuer toujours travail pour faire ça. M'a prendre une petite pause publicitaire, m'a tourner tout de suite pour me faire l'autre 10 minutes avec nous encore pour nous continuer parler.
In Miami, the sun shines on us all. Sometimes, however, life brings unexpected storms. At Morris Legal, we understand that behind every case there's a story, a dream, a family's future. We pledge to stand by you in your time of need. We're not just attorneys. We're advocates for peace of mind. With expertise and empathy, we stand by you, ensuring justice isn't just a concept, but a reality you can feel and trust. Morris Legal, more than just a law firm. We're a beacon in the storm to light the way to brighter days.
Mesdames et messieurs, bonsoir et nous tapons petit causer avec David Castleman qui c'est receiver dans cas Eminifx là. Nous t'ai posé monsieur question, grand pile monde t'ai opportunité pour poser question et moi-même moi là pour porter l'usage, pour porter information pour nous. Et moi pense que comme receiver a dit, il parle très bien. Il dit que il y a un pile travail pour le faire. Parce que m'pa vle nous penser que le fait que receiver a gen non moun yo, li kap juste voyer l'argent bay moun yo. Et c'est pas comme ça fait aux États-Unis. Gen un process légal et parce que ça k'ap passe à là son bagay légal qui est lié. Et changer que moun qui coupable vraiment dans bagay là c'est Eddie Alexandre, c'est pas personne moun. C'est Eddie qui coupable. Mais receiver a yo te appointé li pour le chercher côté koblaye pour le joindre ni. Pour le distribuer. Parce que tandis ça receiver a dit, il dit que 248 millions de dollars qui étaient investis. Dans 248 millions de dollars, il y a un pile comme ça qui est déjà perdu déjà. Plus, il y a 34 millions qui ont été payés, on série de monde qui prend comme chaque vendredi. Alors, si vous même avez investi tout, eh bien, parti dans l'argent, on a perdu déjà. Ça veut dire. Ça veut dire, si tu investis 100 000 dollars, 100 000 dollars en fait partie de 208 millions de dollars qui sont investis. Eh bien, 100 000 dollars, ça va perdre un petit goutte là-dedans quand même, parce que tout le monde a perdu. Alors, prends patience. Et nous pas jouer comme là, nous pas jouer tout, parce que sinon, nous jouons peut-être 50%, 60%, dis bon Dieu merci, parce que si tu investis 100 dollars ou jouer 50 dollars, au moins, ou capable, le côté taxe et avocat ou bien monde qui fait taxe, pour dire le côté fonds investissement de 100 dollars, ou perdre 50 dollars, parce que moi, je connais que le gouvernement capable de rabais peut-être comme ça qu'on peut dire dans l'investissement ça. Alors dans ce sens ça et c'est ça que m'a dit toute viewer mais tout le monde qui a regardé mais il faut me dire nous merci tout et pour support nous et avec channel là parce qu'en pile nous abonner en pile nous supporter channel là c'est pour raison ça qui fait que moi APC porter bagaille que nous besoin pour nous connaître moi connais en pile nous travail du pour l'argent nous et ça fait mal que nous cap perdu un peu dans l'argent. Mais changer tout, comme toujours vous dis, non. Gagner une class action lawsuit Miami contre une série de monde, une série de pasteurs, une série de monde qui t'a promoté Eminifx, qui t'a voyé Eminifx monter, qui t'a fait mon investi dans un bagage que tu connais qui pas vrai, dans un bagage que tu connais qui était fraude. Dans ce sens ça, tout cob que nous perdu, si tu investis 100 dollars ou perdu 40 dollars, eh bien, il y a l'autre monde qui est responsable pour perdre ça. Alors, avocat yo parle de l'autre moun sa yo pour yo faire moun sa yo payer pour ça. Alors, moi bien content que je suis capable de chita ensemble avec nous pour nous faire causer ça aujourd'hui là, pour nous parler de Eminifx parce que son cas que m'a suivre. En pile cas pour fini et moi connais que changer que c'était deux cas. C'était cas criminel là et les États-Unis d'Amérique contre Eddie Alexandre. Et aussi, il y a un cas civil là, c'est FTC versus Eminifx et Eddie Alexandre. Cas ça va continuer. Au contraire, je dis, Eddie Alexandre, pendant la prison, il voyait une lettre par juge là, et quand il s'agit de cas civils là. Alors, monsieur fait des déclarations dans lettre là qui est extraordinaire. Monsieur fait des déclarations dans lettre là que nous-mêmes dans la communauté, nous pourrons discuter ça. Et ma PC, Westin a fait un show dans le week-end là. Pour moi mener 2-3 amis nous dans la communauté haïtienne qui connaît le dossier très bien pour nous venir chita parler sous lettre que Eddie Alexandre voyait by juge là parce que lettre ça qui en pile bagaille sérieux là donne que monsieur dit moi pas connais si c'est menti monsieur bail moi pas connais si c'est vérité mais moi fait que j'ai une copie lettre là nous pas de temps parler de ça et mais nous pourrons parler de ça pour week-end là. Et Lucie Exposito pose une question qui s'est passé dans le suit adventiste là. Eh bien, le suit la marché normalement d'après ça que me connais de avocat yo, eh bien, yo te déposé dans code on alors ça on amendé de complaint, eh bien, process là a marché, gagné ça le discovery qu'a fait. Eh bien, avocat travaille pour nous pas fatiguer nous, c'est chit attendre parce que comme moi toujours dis non affaire légale pas jamais petit, affaire l'état pas jamais petit, affaire dans code pas jamais petit parce que ça prend temps. Et nous tendez que vous dit the grind of justice move very slowly, grind very slowly. So ba yo pas marcher vite. So m'pa nous penser que son bagage qui va paraître tout de suite, son bagage comme si n'a que c'est jeudi à l'an 2000 fait. Moi t'ai toujours dit nous ça et bagage nan côte pas jamais capable fini petit, toujours prend pile temps pour le finir et dans ce sens ça et nous connaissons que ça apprenti temps. Alors, faut que nous passions, mes amis, faut que nous passions, parce que c'est pas Receiver qui fait un mal, ni c'est le gouvernement qui fait un mal, non? C'est Di Alexandre qui te prend comme nous nommé nous, qui te bon nous menti, qui dit qu'il va investir dans la crypto, mais comme la pas investir vraiment, comme la te chita Estonia sous à 40 monsieur sous non monsieur. Alors, kounya là, n'a pas pour nous jeune comme là. So nous pas capable fâcher avec moun qui a essayé pour te kobla bon nous. Faut nous un peu patient pour nous tendre kobla vini. Bon, moi remercier nous en pile parce que nous gardons choses ça. I thank all of you for watching the professor. I will continue to talk about this. I will continue to bring you information. I will continue to keep you informed, keep you on top of what's going on. Next, over the weekend, we're going to talk about the letter that Eddie Alexander sent to George Caprini. It's a letter that that's interesting because Eddie Alexander talked about an FTC fine for $18 million. And the question is, where would that $18 million come from? So this is a very, very, very important statement made by Eddie Alexander from prison. We're going to talk about that, and I'm going to find some answers for you. Perhaps the FTC have answers for that question. I will reach out to them and find out what they're saying. In fact, they may have already responded to Eddie Alexander letter. I will get that letter because I got to tell you guys, this is interesting. So we're going to have to clarify this so people understand exactly what's going on. Again, I thank you so much for watching. And this is the end of the session. I will see you all over the weekend. We will continue talking about this issue until you get all your money back. Thank you for watching, and I will see you later.
In Miami, the sun shines on us all. Sometimes, however, life brings unexpected storms. At Morris Legal, we understand that behind every case there's a story, a dream, a family's future. We pledge to stand by you in your time of need. We're not just attorneys. We're advocates for peace of mind. With expertise and empathy, we stand by you, ensuring justice isn't just a concept, but a reality you can feel and trust. Morris Legal, more than just a law firm. We're a beacon in the storm to light the way to brighter days.